thank you so much for your insights earlier this morning. It's been fantastic to sit and to hear what everybody's been doing and all the great work that's coming out of it. So as I started the event today, I'm confident that we know what's happening, we have the right people on the job. All's great. We've identified the challenges. We have the solutions. So this topic of how we're driving investment in the MENA region with the red water infrastructure, this is where we want to sort of conclude the discussion for today, is to understand what's going to happen. So we know that there's challenges, we know there's vulnerabilities, we understand that, the effects that we're facing is going to call for increased measures on our infrastructure, whether it's existing infrastructure or planned infrastructure as well. So this is where I want to sort of have our discussion around today, is all these efforts that we're trying to avoid or plan for, it does remain, there's still a gap there on the water that we need and the water that we can supply. So sustainable investment, this is where I want to understand, and let's keep it simple in the sense of, why aren't we doing more of this? We have the solutions, we have so much that's come out of today's sessions. So we want to start with Sharif. I'd like to sort of understand what are the main obstacles that are hindering this investment for stormwater, wastewater, and what solutions can help overcome them?
Okay, thanks so much. As you have mentioned, investment in stormwater and wastewater infrastructure really faces multiple challenges. First one, very clear, is the financial constraints. So it's a major barrier. Global wastewater sector investment needs maybe exceeds 300 billion per year, and yet the project remains underfunded due to high upfront costs, long payback periods, and limited cost recovery mechanisms. Also, we can say that regulatory and institutional inefficiencies also create obstacles. So as overlapping, let's say, responsibilities among governmental entities leads to delays and maybe increasing the project costs. Something like more than 15% can be increased by this. As we have heard this morning, some people mentioned that the public-private partnership, there is a real lack of structured PPP. So which has discouraged actually private sector and investors. So maybe what we know that only 15% of developing nations have clear PPP framework in water sector. Other issue like, for example, climate change and urbanization have further intensified pressure on existing systems. So with extreme weather events causing a billion in floods related damage annually. So now comes, the issue how we can invest something that we cannot really rely on due to the changes in climatic conditions and so on. So another thing, maybe finally, the low public awareness. So it's a reduced really policy support, slowing the adoption of innovative wastewater reuse and stormwater management solutions. And as you mentioned, what we can do in order to overcome this, we might propose, again, we need to find solution related to diversified financing mechanism. Such as blended finance, green bonds, climate funds, and so on, that can help bridging these funding gaps. Also, we need to find standardized wastewater regulations and streamline approval process, so to reduce the investment needed and the upstream work needed. Smart water management technologies, we need really to implement something like a decentralized wastewater treatment system, as we have heard this from the presentation, and nature-based solutions. We need to really discover more reliable solution for this, which actually has proven to reduce the cost of implementation for something like 20 to 40%. And increasing also the efficiency. Furthermore, so incorporating stormwater and wastewater infrastructure into urban planning. And we have heard the presentation, we have this overall map with all, the elements related to wastewater treatment. We would like to include it with the urban planning vision. And this can actually reduce flood risks by a huge percentage. And public awareness and capacity building is also something that we need to work on it in terms of initiatives, because it's very essential and it might improve the long-term investment visibility. Thank you.
Great. That's some fantastic sort of insights on those obstacles. But Professor, I just wanted to ask you now, what are the primary financial and regulatory and structural barriers preventing this greater investment from happening? How can it effectively be addressed? How can we actually now, we kind of understand what the barriers are, now how can we further sort of make sure we're getting to the root cause and unlock this potential?
Yeah, I think this is a very good question, actually. Now we need to think about, holistically about what we're really looking for. Are we looking for investors to invest in wastewater treatment plants, or we want investors to invest in the infrastructure itself for stormwater management? So there are two different things here if we're talking about water. I'm not going to talk about water network itself. So if we focus on the wastewater and the stormwater by itself is not really attractive to investors. Wastewater can be attractive, but what hinders investors, from coming into this, investing on this? Usually investors will look at something which has got good revenue. And as Sharif said, that, we got some problems with regulations. Sometimes it takes too long to get approvals. It takes, too many agencies working in the same, have conflict of interest, with the same regulations and, responsibilities and so on. And this has to be streamlined into the one-shop approval if we are looking for investors to work on this. So we need to think from the investor's point of view in the water sector, which is not yet, grown in some countries, especially in developing countries. It's not really yet been, taken seriously. Although there is a need for it. So we're talking about this from the regulatory point of view. The second thing that, investors, when they come, they look at the revenues. Is really the cost of the treatment is make it worse for them to come and invest, and whether they will be able to get their money back or not. This is another thing. Stability in the country as well. Stability of the law and jurisdictions, and they can rely on contracts and so on. So this is some of the issues which usually investors will look at. Aging of the infrastructure. Structural problems. So are we going to ask them to do some kind of, looking for old infrastructure, or we're looking for new infrastructure which they have to build and then pass it to us? So this is something which the usually investors will look at, and usually it depends on the country, perspective and vision, long-term vision to get investors and what they need to achieve, and their vision in the wastewater treatment and stormwater management for 5, 10, 15 years and so on. So in general, we need more streamlined vision for investors to come and just to get approvals. We need more attractive benefits for them and guarantee that they are going to take their money back, they take the revenues. We need as well, to make sure that they are providing for us what they meant to do in the wastewater.
Thank you.
Okay.
So if we shift away from investment, can we now discuss collaboration efforts? Why is collaboration efforts so important, and what is lacking from that? So I'll start with Sharif, just to learn about collaboration between the public and private sectors.
It's a difficult question, by the way, because as far as I understand, collaboration is not a simple word, and it's even far beyond the word cooperation. Collaboration means that we are actually working together in a collaborative manner so we can really intensify the impact we do. So nowadays in our developing countries, there might be a sort of cooperation, but really to to go to cooperation is something that it needs more things to be done. And as I have mentioned, it's a challenge. I mean, now a lot of things like, the complexity related to the regularity system, financial risk, and the unclear revenue model, actually, hinder the private sector to really go and invest and participate in this area. And in order to overcome those challenges and bring the level of interaction and cooperation between the public and private sector to a way of collaboration in tackling these challenges, we need to do some real things. And as I mentioned, and we need to have a clear and predictable regulatory framework that define rules, responsibilities, and also some incentives for private investors. So streamline the approval process and providing financial de-risking mechanism for the private sector, such as this blended finance and so on, and also the clear system for public-private partnership, it can really attract more investment. So the financing, the innovative financing mechanism should be also expanded. So third thing, enhancing the transparency. So we need really to see how we can develop trust, and it's really a crucial issue to be developed. So starting from enhancing or establishing a kind of data sharing platform. We were also saying that data is crucial for people to decide what really to do now and tomorrow and after tomorrow. So right and correct data, reliable data with good quality is needed. So we need to share this proper information and data in a certain platform. Joint planning initiatives. We need also to plan jointly in this regard. And of course, stakeholder engagement. This is also, we need to create some forums to ensure that both public and private sector align their priorities in the right way. The risk assessment, so we need to have a regular risk assessment and performance monitoring so to foster confidence in this partnership. I would like also to intensify the role of scientific research to provide scientific evidence for investment decisions. And I think this might, bring the trust to a higher level that whatever investment being done is really scientifically proved. So the role of the research or even the public sector is to bring a kind of a correct and proved business model for the investors in order to be followed and also to be sure that it's going to develop a cost-effective solutions such as, for example, this decentralized wastewater treatment system. So the government should show this example very highly and market and advertise this as a right business model to be followed, and let them, the private sector, try to invest and also operate and also get some profit out of it. So research-backed policy recommendations can also help refine the framework for public-private partnership, ensuring that regulations support the long-term private sector engagement. So in summary or in conclusion, the combining clear policies, innovative financing, enhancing transparency, and research-driven insights. With this, we can really accelerate the private sector participation and develop a collaborative approach between the public and private sectors in order to really do a lot of effort in order to overcome the challenges we are facing related to wastewater and stormwater infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you for that. It sounds a little bit overwhelming when you have all these, components that need to be considered. So, Hazem, I know I want to ask you about collaboration now between government and the private sector players. So just slightly shifting on what Sharif had just mentioned, and international organizations. So how can we create a more attractive investment landscape for these infrastructure projects if we're looking at governments, private sector, and international organizations?
Yeah, going back to what Sharif have said, Sharif have covered a big, good chunk of this. What I can say on this one, what we need to start from the Ministry of Planning. Now, what we are doing actually, we got already existing wastewater treatment plants, which is already, it will not be attractive for investors. So we're looking at BBB, we're looking at, for example, World Bank, we're looking at Green Fund. So what we need to look at, we need to look at our planning for the future planning. Most of the cities at the moment, they are condensed in the middle of the city, and they have already the infrastructure for it. And if we look at the outskirts of the city, most of the building there, or most of the construction is going into compounds and private developers. So developers has to take the responsibility to provide wastewater treatment plant, smaller ones. With the technology what we have at the moment, technology is amazing. They can provide cheap wastewater treatment for decentralized areas, which is actually what we're looking for. So we are not putting pressure on the government. So these people can have their own, wastewater treatment. And in that case, we are not forcing them, but we are giving them the opportunity to invest as private investors. And the water, which is a treat, actually, they can actually reuse it to do green areas around. So we reduce the climate heat in that sense. We are reusing the water properly, and we can actually make it more, what we can say, economically for us to reuse this water. So this is one of the things which I actually would say that this is number one which we have to start with. Second, to get investors from outside. Once we started this business model plan and we develop this one, definitely investors will come. World Bank, and other international organizations will see this attractive model, and they will actually approach the countries to invest. Now, countries are running after the big investors to, get investment from. So it's our approach, our thoughts, our, thinking outside the box. This will actually attract investors. So this is one of the things. Nowadays, we have the AI. How can we utilize AI in just, attracting investors? So we need actually to develop tools where we can see what investors need, what international investors looking for, what international organizations looking for. And then we get their criteria, we get their targets, and we can actually put our new developments, and we can say, okay, this plant, is going to be offered for this one, and we can see who can invest on this. And using that, we can get them to invest. So this is just, two things which I think can highlight the future for selecting the right partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, if they're operating at an organization level or a site level, there should be some level of responsibility that they can handle to sort of alleviate any of that extra stress that might be put on, some of this infrastructure that can cope with it. So as part of water audits that I do conduct for water certifications, it's about what are you doing from wastewater from your site to ensure that that quality of wastewater leaving your site is not going to do any further damage, or it's not going to cost others more to do that. So I think an organization or a site level or an asset level, there is some level of responsibility that they just must be able to meet as well. But to elaborate on that point, how can we improve on efficiency, affordability, and sustainability? So it sounds like a lot of different things to cover, and I know it can be covered, but what are your thoughts on that?
Actually, to improve sustainability of the water and wastewater treatment, actually using the AI and sensors at the moment is actually an amazing technology. What we have developed in the last 3 years it's mind-blowing. I'm working in projects at the moment, for the flood resilience and flood estimation using AI. And I can tell you, this is just one. I mean, if you look at the water leakage, we can reduce the non-revenue water by, immense, reduction on the leakage and so on. This will save us a lot of money. So AI has to be integrated again on that sense. And we have this, the automated wastewater treatment. So this is another thing which, AI can really contribute and technology can contribute. And we have in the MENA region to think really seriously about reusing, utilizing research institutes, because this is where the power of innovation comes. So far, I think I can say from what I've seen, we are utilizing the research institutes and universities and so on for about 30% of our problems, but the rest is actually we're getting our solutions from outside, which is not really sometimes is not practical. We need to develop our technology based on our needs. We can actually get this, the funds, we can encourage, people to, or invest, or, governments just to look at some green funds, and they have to understand what are the green funds are, what is the funds which is available for sustainability, because most of this, what we are doing, we are not considering the sustainability part of carbon, carbon savings. And with carbon saving, if you prove that you can save some carbon from a new initiative, new technology, you can actually get some fund, international fund for it. You can even save the country a lot of money, because countries are paying, based on the carbon emissions. So we need to have an integrated system which can show the government how much they are saving, how much they are, they can save using new technologies and so on.
Well, thank you. Some very valid points. Sharif, what are your thoughts on ensuring the long-term resilience for water infrastructure? So how will long-term planning contribute to this?
Good. So water infrastructure resilience is really crucial, as we are facing a lot of changes now. So climate is changing. Population is growing. The increasing water demand, all those pose major challenges worldwide. So long-term planning is very essential. So without the long-term planning, so the water system and the infrastructure really face risks of inefficiency, degradation, and failure, of course. So one key aspect of this is the role in mitigating climate change impacts, for example. You know that we are actually working with a lot of uncertainties nowadays. The climate change, but also not only the changing, not only the global warming, but also the increased intensity of extreme events. Extreme droughts and extreme floods. So how to design your infrastructure, how to look at it from the long-term planning perspectives. So either now, for example, for this flood mitigation, plus risk mitigation, are we going to design it based on 100 years floods return period or 200, whatever? So we need really to think clearly and deeply in terms of the long-term planning, the demands. I mean, nowadays, over 25% of the global population face this high water stress. Expect to increase to maybe 50% by 2050. So how we really try to plan when we design our water infrastructure systems based on that. Again, climate change, rising temperature, extreme weather events, and so on. Those all requiring the government to integrate this kind of climate modeling, risk assessment, and adaptive infrastructure design into water management strategies. We need to invest in early warning systems and flood control measures, climate smart technologies. It's really very essential to really for the resilience, for the high level of resilience related to infrastructure, water related infrastructure. The effective water supply and the demand management is another pillar for long-term planning. So by 2030, global water demand will exceed supply or exceed supply maybe something like 40%. So a structured approach to water allocation, conservation, and alternative sourcing is necessary. So maybe you think about desalination, again, wastewater reuse, natural-based solution. All these are really needed to be incorporating in our long-term planning in order to be able really to satisfy the needs now and tomorrow. The infrastructure longevity also depends on proactive planning. So we need really to think of that. So regular monitoring and predictive maintenance and modernization program extend also the lifespan of these critical assets. So we need to use these technologies, the remote sensing, artificial intelligence, name it. So all real-time monitoring systems are really essentials for water infrastructure management. All these are actually long-term perspective approaches that we need to incorporate in our strategy development and planning approach, because otherwise you really lose, you don't match it a sustainability issue. I mean, in terms of technical sustainability, environmental and economical, and even social sustainability, you need to really to look at a long-term planning while you are actually working with things that very dynamic systems are really dynamic now in terms of water, in terms of drought and flood, and how to develop more kind of new sources of water. So in summary, the long-term planning provides foresight, risk mitigation, and strategic resource allocation. Without it, the short-term intervention fails to address systematic vulnerabilities, making water security unachievable. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have come to the end of our time. I hope we managed to sort of get the key points that we hope to achieve in this discussion. But I think we did. We got some takeaways that the audience can take forward and maybe on how they can drive this investment, the importance of it, what's available, how to collaborate. It's not an easy task, I agree, but it's something that has to happen. And so this is where I want to leave the conversation today. I'm sure we can, anybody can approach you while we're having lunch and take the discussion further. The whole purpose of this event is to make sure we take these discussions offline and we maximize the opportunities to have these conversations, to talk about what we need to talk about as here today. So I thank you for joining me in this panel discussion today and for your time and for all your valuable insights that you've also given us earlier throughout the day. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity. Thanks for the audience.